Hello everyone, it's me Ryan, and welcome back to another video. So today in this video, as you may have guessed it already by this grid paper, this video is going to be about art, once again. Okay, so the last video from when I checked a couple days ago, or last night or something, basically last time I checked that video, it didn't seem to be getting as much popularity. Well, as I'm saying that, I do notice that every single other video I have doesn't get as much popularity as well. We're continuing it, because I think there's something else very important I need to cover. So if you did enjoy the last video, like and subscribe, and yeah, do whatever else other YouTubers tell you to do or something, I don't know. Anyways, let's get on with it. So the last video we talked about perspective. If you get confused in this video at all, go see the last video, it should help. So, once again, similar to that video, we'll include some examples at the end, but today we're talking about circles. Perspectively correct circles. Now I know what you may be thinking. I know what you might be thinking. Ryan, I can draw a circle perfectly fine. Look at me drawing a circle. That's a perfectly fine circle. First of all, that's not a perfectly fine circle, and you can draw it much better. So how do you draw a perspectively correct circle? Before we begin that, how do you draw a proper circle? I might be yelling a bit, I apologize for that. But here's the easiest way to draw a circle. Again, using grid paper for ease of access. So first, a circle, of course, we all know its radius, diameter. Basically, all the lines from the center equal the same points. So let's think of it first as a square. So let's say your square is going to be 4 high, 4 wide. You have pretty basic square. All sides are equal. So now what you do with the square is you do this. So these points, the points that I've marked here, this point, this point, this point, and this point, are going to be where your circles or where your circle connects. So the circle only touches a circle only touches these 4 points, and that's it. Those are its widest points, which is why we start with a square, because it's easier. So with the square, you then start. The easiest way I find to do is to kind of like do this, just like. Make it look as circular as possible. Okay, that's a bad example there, but make it look as circular as possible. Or perhaps do one side, and then the other side as round as possible. And there you have a perfect-ish circle. Of course, you could erase it a bit, make it look nicer, and there you have a perfect circle. And of course, after that, you erase the background, and there is a perfect circle. Before I get on into more other things, I'd like to mention some of you guys or some of my viewers don't really think art is as important as, for example, math. But think of it this way: if you like math, which I know some people do, if you like math, then think of art kind of like math. I guess I can go into detail of that a little further, but yeah, think of it as angles, like, you know, angles, 90 degrees, right angles, stuff like that. Using the square idea that I just quickly retraced to show you, you could do it without the square. So we're just gonna do same proportions 4 by 4, except don't draw the whole square, just draw those 2 parts, or 4 parts, sorry. And you might want to draw the center, though it's not really necessary. So as you can see, I'm doing the exact same steps, just without the, the square. Entire frame, square. And there you have another pretty close circle. Now, of course, you can always find adjustment, like, for example, this angle comes in too quickly, you could smoothen that out a bit. Or maybe this angle here just comes in too quickly, or maybe it's not wide enough, or maybe it's shrunken in, or too large, expanded. You can work that out. That's the whole point. It's almost impossible to draw a perfect circle first try just by going with one loop. So it's okay. Go as many times around as you want. So that's just how you draw a basic circle. Perspectively accurate circles are follow the pretty much exact same formatting. So let's say you want to draw a perspectively accurate circle. But if you had a cup, for example, and you look at it straight down from bird's eye view, you're going to see something like this. But if you tilted that cup and looked on the top, it's not going to look like that. That's not what your cup is going to look like. So, like, that's not how a cup looks like. What a cup does look like, though, is, let's use the exact same square again. We're going to do it by 4, but this time, we're not going to do the other 2 on top. Well, we are, but we're going to make it slightly smaller. Now, the dimensions do vary on depending on how large your actual shape is, or however the actual shape you're going to make up. I find that flatter perspectively accurate circles are slightly easier to draw. They're just ovals. So you have a pretty good oval. And if you were to draw a cup, you draw something like that. Now, as you can see, I've also included a perspectively accurate bottom circle. Some troubleshooting tips, I'll explain that right now as some mistakes and other things you should consider. So, as with perspective, if you haven't seen the last video, let's say you have your horizon. Anything above your horizon, you're going to see the bottom. Anything below it, you're going to see the top. This similarly works for circles. So, if we had, let's just say, a tube. This is going to be our tube. So, in the direct center, your circle is going to be flat, because, well, it's at an angle where it's flat. These are all circles, by the way. So, when it goes down, as you can see, the circle becomes more visible. But as it goes further down, it becomes more and more visible. Same as for the top. I've kind of done that badly, but think a quick way to think of it is that if you ever seen a coin flip, when it spins in the air, that's how circles work. If you take a video of a coin flip, put it in slow motion, pause it at a certain rate, you'll see that that's what the circles inside look like. So you can imagine this as kind of like a coin flipping. So that's how circles work. That will determine what angle you're viewing it at. For example, this circle here would be a cup if you looked it directly straight down. Well, this would be a cup on its side. And if you want to do a flat cup, so cup on the top, cup on its side, cup on its very side. Now that we got that covered, let's begin with some quick tips on how to draw circles. So right now I've seen two strategies, the box strategy and the, what is called the pinpoint strategy. Because similar to the box, you're not drawing the whole box, you're just pinpointing the outermost areas. Now, there's a third way to draw it, but I wouldn't recommend it unless you're that thorough with drawing circles like I am. So, the third way to draw it is, you don't plot no points. Don't plot the points at all. I mean, you could dot them down, but basically, you don't plot the points. So, let's say you're gonna have to, let's say I have a little bit of a barrel here, and this area down here is just so small, but you're not gonna mark it out because I don't know, that takes more time. What you can easily do is just take your pencil and just continue circling. Now, the reason you could do this, well, this could also be a beginner method, but it's not the best, because the way to draw circles is actually don't do this with your hand, because that's not how. If you actually freely move your hand, you can draw perspectively accurate circles. Not exactly sure how that works, but that's what I was taught. So yeah, so if you have, usually with really small circles that you don't want to mark out all the specific areas, you can just eyeball it. So you can do this, and then. So it turns out I made a small mistake with this one, so ignore that one. The top, as I mentioned before, the top should always be smaller than the bottom one. The further you go down, the larger the circle becomes, as well as the further you go up, depending on where your horizon is. So the horizon would be around there, and yeah. Now, the final part. I'm not even sure if I will get to the examples, but the final part is going to be how to draw circles with perspective, which is slightly harder. So for the most cases, you're going to have to draw circles that look like this, unless it's on its side. Yes, that sounds kind of scary, but if a circle is on its side, it becomes much more difficult to draw, especially with perspective. So let's do this 2D example real quick. Now, as you can see, we have our quick square here. I'm showing this for demonstration purposes. So, same as you would plot the points. You could also, I haven't mentioned this before, but you can also do a cross in between to help you guide where the center is and stuff. So, what you first have to do is take the two corners and draw diagonal lines. And that will determine your center points. Now, from your center point, you should be able to pinpoint another vertical line here. Now, you may notice your center points, if you've done perspective correctly, the side here is larger than the side here. Or, either way, the side closest to you is larger than the side farther away from you. This is totally normal, because that's how perspective works, as explained in the last video. So, once you have your vertical line, you can then make a horizontal line following perspective between the center, like so. And now you have your 4 points of contact. Remember, these diagonal lines are not your 4 points as mentioned before here. The diagonal lines are just to guide where the center is. If any of these lines don't match up, you've drawn it wrong. Here's where math comes in, actually. This angle here and this angle here are the same. Yes, we all know that. And these angles here are wider than these angles here. You notice that? Even though I'm drawing these larger. But these angles here are, in fact, wider than these angles here. That means that the circle is going to be larger. Or it's going to look larger than, here. Of course, since these two angles are also corresponding, they will be the exact same most of the time. So now they have those, you can, now the thing with, okay, it's a little hard to describe, but think of it this way. These angles, the ones that are larger, go more smoothly because it has more space to draw a circle. But these shorter angles here kind of like dip. They go one way and then they just dip the other way, which is, that's pretty much the hardest part about drawing a perspectively accurate circle. That shorter angle with that dip, it is definitely hard. And there you have our perspectively accurate circle. So what can you do with this? Well, you can make a wheel. I'll show you that now. Sadly, because drawing circles are so complex, I'm going to have to end this video here because we're just about running out of the time limit. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Wait for part 2 because that's when I'm going to explain more about this circle stuff. But anyways, this was In the Basics. Adios. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, like, and do whatever.